The more perfect union part of our Constitution may feel a little out of reach these days. Our country, our states, our neighborhoods, and in some cases, even our families are divided about how to make life better. Something has to change. So we are doing something different. This is an invitation to just listen. You may not agree with everything you hear, but the hearing is the most important part right now. It's raw, it's unfiltered, but the hope is that we open the door to all perspectives so we can get closer to understanding each other. In today's Conversations for Change, we introduce you to Asantewa Boykin.
My name is Asantewa Boykin. I am a mother, I am a nurse, I'm a freedom fighter, a poet, and a wife. I am also a proud resident of Sacramento, co-founder of Anti-Police Terror Project, and program director for Mental Health First. I think just being born Black and in America first, right? All of our parents had that talk with us that if you get pulled over, make sure you're polite, make sure you don't move too fast, make sure, right, you have all of your documents available so you're not killed. Just growing up with that acute awareness that we could be murdered or disappeared at any given moment is something that we all know about. And I think any Black person you talk to has probably had adverse experiences with police officers. I think there was one point I was working in inpatient psych in San Diego. I was on my way home and the music was loud because I just worked a double and I had the windows down so I wouldn't fall asleep, and I was pulled over and the officer got out of the car, gun drawn, and kept screaming, "Sir, sir, sir." By the time I could turn my head, there was a gun pointed at my face. He saw my stethoscope and it gave him pause. And it was in that moment I knew that even though I didn't have children at that time, that I did not want to continue to live in a world where driving home from work can get me killed. Being here in Sacramento, I worked in inpatient psychiatric treatment, and I think being inside of the ER really exposed the gaps that we see in mental health care. And there was something in me that was like, we have to do something about this. Like this cannot continue the same way it is. I was a patient once, and I was in labor. The outcome was likely not going to be very good. And I remember the nurses and the doctors talking. It was clear they made a lot of assumptions about what kind of person they thought I was. And it was hurtful. It was harmful. I have watched a groundswell movement happen of lots of young folks, seasoned organizers, activists that are having conversations across sectors, whether these folks are pastors of churches, if they are, radicals with bandanas, if they're fresh out of high school, trans, queer, all these like different folks are coming to the table and saying, we have this in common, and how do we change it? And I think it's absolutely brilliant. I am proud to be a Sacramento resident. Currently, I'm extremely moved by the tenacity of this community, by the audacity of this community to go to their elected officials and say, this is what we want, and we want it now. So these systems exist in different ways in different places, right? Like there are other countries that don't have prisons. They have criminal justice systems that actually help a person go from, deals with the root cause of what made them commit a crime and addresses that, right? Not just like locks them up in a place and say like, this is your punishment. What I hope to see is not just Sacramento, but the state and the country begin to visualize and dream about another kind of system. I think one thing that we are acutely aware of is that what we are living under now is not working, right? It's not working for us. It is absolutely working for capitalism. It is absolutely working for the people who own private prisons. It is absolutely working for the Police Officers Association and unions. It is absolutely working for them, but it is not working for the folks that pay their salary. So what I hope to see is like prisons go away. I hope to see police go away. But more than that, I hope that the people continue to trust themselves, right? To trust their gut and their intuition, and that movement goes in the way that the people want it to go at the end of the day, and that we're raising children where freedom isn't a question, it's a given. It's an absolute. It is just something that is there. It isn't something that they have to struggle for. It's just a part of their life, you know? Living in this moment is amazing, and we should absolutely take ourselves seriously. We are making these changes. We are making history. Keep doing the work.
Conversations for Change will air every Tuesday at 11 a.m. and 7 p.m. as we introduce you to a new member of our community. Well, this week, Fox 40 continues our Conversations for Change with a look at what makes an American. Again, with folks in many of our neighborhoods, our families so divided these days, hearing each other but not really listening, we decided to do something different. Instead of working to form an immediate reply to what you're hearing, like all of us do in so many situations, this is your invitation to just listen. What you're about to hear is raw, and we realize you may not agree, but the hope is the more we all listen, the closer we may get to understanding each other. In today's Conversations for Change, we introduce you to Robert Nunez.
My name is Robert Nunez. I am an actor, a singer, a plant dad, a UC Berkeley alum, go Bears. I love anything political, anything social media, and I am a DACA recipient. I've always known I was an immigrant. I've always known that I was born in Mexico, Jalisco, and that my family moved here when I was 4 years old. I think what was most difficult growing up is there's a value instilled in you that your parents moved here for your success, for you to grow and do better in life than they were given the opportunity to do. And intrinsically, that meant that my parents left everything they knew to come here for me. And I remember when I was a kid praying every night, and in my prayers would be that my mom would see her mom one day. Because she sacrificed her life with her family in order to give me a better opportunity. I have memories of when I was a little bit older, maybe in my early teens, and having my parents being pulled over for traffic stops for going 5-10 miles past the speed limit. And I remember the police officer asking, "Can I see your ID?" And I didn't know where that would lead. Something as simple as going 5 to 10 miles an hour too fast. I didn't know if that was going to be the last time that I saw my father or the last time that I saw my school. And so I think that was always a fear. For me, DACA could not have happened at a better time. It was when I was in community college. And so I found out, like everyone else did, watching the news and hearing the president say that he was announcing an executive order that would allow me to have a social security number, a work permit, a driver's license, and so many other opportunities that it clicked. I said this was meant to be. The application for DACA requires a person to be a model citizen. You can't have any criminal record. You have to be in school. You have to be working. The night of the 2016 election, I remember I was actually in class. I was taking a 7 to 9 p.m. class at the Public Policy Building at UC Berkeley, and the election results came in. And the first thing that came to my mind was the threats to end DACA. I cried to my roommates, called my parents the next day. A lot of fear because of not knowing how those threats were going to solidify. It's really scary knowing that you built an entire life in a country based off of a program. You gave a program like DACA gave all my information to the government. They have it stored somewhere. They know where I live. They know where I go to school. They know everything about me. And all of a sudden, that was being threatened. It's heartbreaking, especially when we're talking about elected officials using us as pawns to try to criminalize other immigrants. And that is something that we all share. No dreamer wants to have DACA if it's going to put their parents at risk. No dreamer wants to have DACA if it's going to get rid of asylum policies that have literally saved people's lives. Policy is between actors who already have power, who already have influence, and we don't have that. As undocumented youth, we don't have that kind of power or political voice. We are in limbo, and we are a political chess piece, and that's just the nature of DACA, or at least it was until the recent Supreme Court ruling. I think that was the first time in a long time where I gave a sigh of relief. I don't think it's peace. I think you find a way to find stability within the instability. You kind of come to the point where you accept that this is where we are. And so still in limbo, waiting to see how the promises and or the threats start to take form before I tell myself that I'm at anywhere near at peace.
Our conversation for change this week puts a focus on educational equity, what some say is not happening for Black students in California's classrooms. This is your invitation to just listen. What you're about to hear is raw, and we realize you may not agree, but the hope is the more we all listen, the closer we may get to understanding each other. In today's conversation for change, we introduce you to Margaret Fortune.
My name is Margaret Fortune. I am actually the daughter of educators and the granddaughter of educators. My career has been in public policy. I went to the Harvard Kennedy School of Government and got a master's in public policies. I was an advisor to 2 California governors on both sides of the aisle. I'm the president and CEO of Fortune School, and we're a network of 9 public charter schools located in Sacramento. And the focus of our schools is to close the African American achievement gap. You gotta look at the results. Black kids are the lowest performing subgroup in our public schools, other than students with special needs. About 70% of Black kids can't read or write at grade level. Those are the results. The reason why Fortune School exists is because a public school board, the Sacramento County Board of Education, made a finding of fact on the record that all 13 of the county's school districts have a severe and persistent African American achievement gap, such that there is no place that a Black family can go in Sacramento in the traditional public schools and not confront that. That's not just. The work of closing the African American achievement gap is actually learnable, right? So let's go there. We are living in a society that is very comfortable aggrandizing Black people for their work ethic when it comes to practicing sports. But then when they get into a school environment, we want to soft pedal the practice. Nobody wants to go see LeBron James play basketball without looking at the score. The same is true for academics. We have to measure academic performance. And my students are incredibly competitive. High expectations, that has to do with your belief that the child that's sitting in front of you is intellectually capable of meeting and exceeding all of the requirements in order to be competitively eligible for college. We don't make excuses based on the background of kids. We don't make excuses for ourselves because the work is hard. They have to practice. Many parents will say, well, my goodness, it's not my kindergartner's fault that they didn't show up to school, it's my fault. And to that I say, exactly. And that's why they're not getting honor roll, is because of you. So bring your child to school. Now, a part of being successful in closing the Black achievement gap is being willing to have those tough conversations and not shying away from them. I think in many school environments, our educators are afraid of the parents and they're afraid of the kids. Now, I am from and of the community, and this is not my first rodeo, so I'm not remotely afraid of anybody. White students are often in environments that were created for them, with them in mind, with their parents in mind. We understand the importance of being affirming to Black people, and it makes a difference to see educators that are diverse educators and that they are committed equally to the child, that the Black kids know that they're valued. Some people make the mistake of thinking that Black people don't care about their children. Nothing could be further from the truth. We as a community are incredibly invested in education. As a matter of fact, after slavery, the first thing that we did was form schools. My parents went to 1970s Carmichael because they were escaping segregation in the South. I've always been a person who stood up for myself. And I certainly had to learn that early as the only Black kid in my class. You know, I will say that I remember being called the N-word at school, and by a kid who was new to our elementary school. And I was impressed with my white classmates who handled that kid on the playground, how they defended me. Excuse me. And so when I talk about, school environments that aren't made for Black children, 1970s Carmichael was not made for Black kids. And so I consider myself to be very privileged to have this opportunity to serve African American children in this way. I felt that sense of what it is to be an other, and I realized, you realize about yourself, are you fight or flight? How do you respond to challenge? I fight, and I think that that's what makes Sacramento such a special place, is that we are a community of people that take action to do what's right and to do what's good.
Having to serve and protect when your service is suspect. That's the focus of our conversation for change this week. FOX40 is doing something different to address all the division in our community by giving you an invitation to just listen. We realize you may not agree with the raw feelings that are about to be shared, but the hope is the more we all listen, the closer we may get to understanding each other. In today's conversation for change, we introduce you to Kiana Rowe.
My name is Kiana Rowe. I am a daughter, I'm a sister, a wife, a mother, a friend. Played college basketball, got a scholarship, love basketball, love it. I'm a Christ follower who happens to be in the law enforcement profession. I am a sergeant, currently employed with the Sacramento County Sheriff's Office. Gosh, I will say I was never the 3-year-old kid that wanted to be a cop. What I envisioned myself doing honestly was being an attorney initially, and I think it was because I wanted to help people, and I think anybody in law enforcement would say that it's because I want to help people. So the academy was difficult. I was anxious. I started off, I was about 24 when I started, and we called ourselves a full deck of cards. We had 52 when we started, and there were, I would say, there were 3 Black people in my academy. There were 2 females and 1 male. All of us, we all finished, and so that was really cool. But it was not very diverse. And I think there's a huge distrust, particularly with the African American community. I really want to be clear in saying that while I support the struggle of my people, because I sit in the shade of trees that people before me have planted. But I also know that it's not mutually exclusive to support good law enforcement and to also support a voice and a cause for change that has been needed for some time. I will say, and what's on the forefront of my mind right now is George Floyd. I will say that there is nothing more hated and just that outrages good law enforcement who take an oath to protect and serve than ones that tarnish the badge. Being a Black officer in the current times, I feel like I'm at an intersection of my identity and my profession right now. And being a law enforcement professional is not who I am, it's what I do. And so it's difficult now because when I go out into the community and I see people that look like me. I see Black people, and they're angry. How can you do this? How can you do that? And my answer is that we all just we have to just listen. We all, again, I want them to understand that we came into this profession, myself included, to help people. I am the only female on my team. I supervise and oversee 9 male deputies. We are engaged as a team, and I'm constantly modeling, and I'm constantly in our briefings, we're talking about our policy, making sure that people are aware of the expectation. I think it's so important. When you know what's expected of you, it's easier to carry out the mission. And so we debrief calls all the time, calls that could have gone awry. Officers are trained to be able to bring peace and to bring calm to situations that otherwise weren't peaceful. And so we are charged and trusted by the community and by our local departments to be able to use that force which is necessary to bring the situation under control. And so I would say that there's never a use of force that appears good to the community. I think that with any profession, with anything you do, you're going to find people that weren't well suited for that profession. The people that I've worked with in my time, I have not experienced anything that I have deemed to be racial. I wish someone could see my team. I wish someone could see the people that I know that love the community, that really focus on, that work within policy. It's almost a ministry. It sounds crazy. It's almost a ministry. I'm able to go out into the community that I love and that I serve, and to really speak life into others, to help on their worst days. I see light in the tunnel. I see beauty out of ashes, and I believe it on the horizon. I just don't think that we can stay here. I don't think we'll stay here. I see the community and law enforcement reconciling. I see everybody having a seat at the table to have these difficult conversations, and I think that's where we are. That gives me a great joy. I'm not afraid to do it. I'm not afraid because I have people, naysayers. I'm covered. I feel like I'm covered. I'm trained. I love it. I love going out, and even in this space right now where we are with the law enforcement community, the distrust, I'm emboldened to do even that much more and to be that much better and to really do the job that I've been called to do. Change happens when the uncomfortable situations occur, and I think that we're in a beautiful place. I know I mentioned it before, but I believe God brings beauty from ashes. And right now we are in a space where people are hurting, people are broken. Knowing that we're human, it breaks me. The same things that are in the news that break others, it breaks us too.
Fox 40 is continuing our conversations for change. This week, we have a look at what it means to feel like you don't belong in a place that belonged to you and your people long before it was anybody else's. Just to remind you, with folks in our neighborhoods, our families so divided these days, hearing each other but not really listening, we've been doing something a little different. We're inviting you to just listen. What you're about to hear is raw, and we realize you may not agree, but the hope is that the more we all listen, the closer we may get to understanding each other. In today's Conversation for Change, we introduce you to Leticia Aguilar.
Hello, my name's Leticia Aguilar. I'm a mother of 3, born and raised here in Sacramento. I'm also part of Native Dads Network here in Sacramento. Founder of Native Sisters Circle, part of Pineleville Pomo Nation. Society tends to label us and call us ghetto, or they call us angry. They portray us to be in the books, running around with feathers in our hair and bow and arrows, and that whole stereotype that people use when it comes to Native Americans, and how they take the mascots and they think that we're your mascot. We are not your mascot. My tribe is a very small tribe, Pineleville Pomo Nation, and there was a time when it was illegal for Native Americans to step foot on American territory. They put us on these little spots of land that didn't have no rivers running through it, no food. really nothing. The soil wasn't rich. And the colonizers said, okay, if you step foot off of this land, that's illegal and we can kill you. Back then, California government issued bounties on Native American scalps. Not a lot of people know that because it's not something that's taught in the school. So my daughter, she had went to school and was learning about Columbus, and one day the teacher had said, Columbus discovered America. My daughter said, well, he didn't. There were people here already. And what the teacher had said was, yes, but he still discovered it. And she challenged him. She spoke up her truth, and she got sent to the office. She was upset. She was embarrassed. She didn't feel comfortable with that teacher for quite a long time. Our kids are going to school and they're speaking their truths and they're being punished. If they're having issues in the school systems and they're not able to, learn the proper histories and the proper things that help them feel a part of the classroom, they struggle with that. They struggle with learning in general. They don't see themselves fitting in. We know the truth. And so part of the work that I do and I would say we do as a community is we're trying to bring the teachings, the correct teachings into the school systems. And we don't want to undo history. We just want the correct history being taught. To see the Sarah statue come down and to see the Columbus statue come down, I feel like a lot of progress is being made. This time of change is very important for us as Native people because of what the Columbus statue represents. The Columbus statue represents the beginning of the forced assimilation, the beginning of colonization, and historical trauma for our people. So a lot of hurt and a lot of pain, and that's why I wear this shirt, and this represents a lot to our people because part of that forced assimilation was to cut our boys' hair. My boys do have long hair, and it's a part of our Native heritage to have that long hair, and there's a lot of meaning behind that, which is beautiful. And I want my children to know that it's okay to be who you are and be proud of that. That's their extension of who they are. It's their identity, their confidence. And so today when we send our boys to school, they're still being bullied because their hair is long. And they're still being called names and teased because they don't look like the other kids. And the system teaches that you should look a certain way. You know, when we braid our boys' hair, that's a prayer every day. You know, we braid their hair and we pray for their protection, every strand, mind, body, spirit. And so it's not their fault. It's not people's fault what they don't know. I feel once you know, then you're responsible.
Our Conversations for Change with Leticia Aguilar continues online as we pose a question many of you may want to ask right about now. Check out fox40.com to hear her answer. Our next conversation, next Tuesday, airing at 11 a.m. and at 7 p.m.